Everybody thought I was doing fine. I smiled. I showed up. I kept going. But behind closed doors, I was exhausted. And nobody knew how close I was to breaking. If you had looked at me from the outside, you probably would have thought I was okay. I smiled when people talked to me. I showed up when I was expected to. I laughed at the right moments. From a distance, everything looked normal. Maybe even good. But what people saw was performance, not reality. Because behind every smile, there was exhaustion. Behind every conversation, there was pressure. And behind every, "I'm fine," there was a version of me slowly falling apart. But I became good at hiding it. Too good. I learned how to function while emotionally drained. How to keep moving while mentally exhausted. How to appear strong even when I felt completely overwhelmed inside. And the dangerous part about that kind of pain is that nobody notices it. Because silent struggles don't always look dramatic. Sometimes they look like productivity. Like smiling. Like showing up. Like pretending. And that's exactly what I was doing. Pretending. Not because I wanted attention, but because I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling. So instead, I carried it quietly. Every thought. Every fear. Every pressure. Hoping somehow things would eventually get better on their own. But pain ignored doesn't disappear. It grows. The pressure didn't come from one thing. It came from everything. Expectations. Responsibilities. Fear of failure. Fear of disappointing people. And over time, it became heavy. But instead of talking about it, I kept carrying it. Because somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that strength meant silence. That being strong meant handling everything alone. So I stopped opening up. Stopped explaining when I was overwhelmed. Stopped admitting when I was struggling mentally. Because I didn't want people to see me differently. I didn't want to appear weak. And the strange thing is, the more pressure I carried internally, the more normal I acted externally. That's what survival mode does. It teaches you how to function while breaking. How to smile while exhausted. How to continue while emotionally disconnected from yourself. And eventually, that becomes your identity. You stop asking yourself how you feel. Because survival becomes more important than honesty. But the body keeps score. The mind keeps score. And eventually, everything you suppress starts showing up in other ways. Fatigue. Overthinking. Emotional numbness. And slowly, I stopped feeling like myself. There were moments where I would smile around people, then immediately feel empty the moment I was alone again. And honestly, that scared me. Because I realized I had become disconnected from my own emotions. I knew how to perform happiness, but I didn't know how to feel peace anymore. And the hardest part? Nobody noticed. People saw the smile, the jokes, the productivity, but they didn't see the exhaustion behind it. And I didn't blame them. Because I became an expert at hiding it. I knew exactly what to say. How to act. How to appear okay. But internally, I was tired. Tired of carrying emotions I never processed. Tired of pretending I wasn't affected by things that deeply hurt me. And over time, that emotional weight became heavier than I expected. Because pain hidden for too long doesn't stay quiet forever. Eventually, it demands attention. The truth is, I wanted help. I wanted someone to understand what I was carrying internally. But vulnerability terrified me. Because being vulnerable means being seen honestly. And I wasn't sure people would understand. So instead, I stayed guarded. I kept conversations surface level. Avoided emotional honesty. Avoided admitting how overwhelmed I truly felt. Because I feared judgment. Feared becoming the struggling person. And that fear kept me trapped. Because the more I hid my emotions, the more isolated I became. And isolation makes pain louder. At first, I thought I was just tired. Maybe I needed more sleep. Maybe I needed a break. Maybe I was just stressed. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Because this exhaustion felt different. It wasn't physical. It was emotional. The kind of exhaustion that follows you everywhere. The kind that makes even simple things feel heavy. Replying to messages became draining. Conversations felt forced. Even moments that should have made me happy felt empty. And the hardest part was this. I kept pretending I was okay while silently running out of energy inside. That's what emotional burnout does. It slowly disconnects you from yourself. You continue functioning externally. But internally, you feel numb. Disconnected. Lost. And after carrying pressure for so long, my mind and body finally reacted. I started overthinking constantly. Struggling to rest mentally. Feeling emotionally overwhelmed by things that normally. There's always a moment when the pressure becomes impossible to hide from yourself anymore. For me, that moment happened quietly. No dramatic scene. No public breakdown. Just silence. One night, I sat alone. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped distracting myself. No music. No phone. No pretending. Just me. And the truth I had been avoiding. And honestly, it hit hard. Because once the distractions disappeared, I realized how emotionally exhausted I truly was. I had spent so much time trying to survive externally, that I completely ignored what was happening internally. And suddenly, everything I had buried emotionally started rising to the surface. The fear. The pressure. The loneliness. The emotional weight I kept carrying silently. And in that moment, I realized something painful. I could no longer continue living like this and call it strength. Because surviving emotionally is not the same as healing emotionally. And that truth changed me. For the first time, I admitted it honestly. I'm not okay. Not for attention. Not for sympathy. But because honesty had become necessary. And strangely enough, that painful moment became the beginning of something important. Awareness. Because you cannot heal what you continue pretending doesn't exist. Once I finally admitted the truth to myself, something shifted internally. Not instantly. Not dramatically. But deeply. Because pretending takes energy. Denial takes energy. Running from your emotions takes energy. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped running. I allowed myself to sit with my thoughts honestly. No distractions. No performance. No fake positivity. Just truth. And honestly, that process was uncomfortable. Because when you finally slow down, you begin noticing everything you ignored emotionally. The disappointments you never processed. The pressure you normalized. The exhaustion you kept minimizing. And I realized something important. I wasn't weak for feeling overwhelmed. I was human. I had simply been carrying too much for too long without releasing any of it. And slowly, I started understanding myself better. What triggered my stress? What drained my peace? What I needed emotionally that I kept denying myself? That self-awareness changed everything. Because healing begins with honesty. Not performance. Not pretending. Truth. And once I finally faced the truth internally, I stopped fighting myself emotionally. And that created space for something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Healing didn't happen overnight. There was no magical moment where everything suddenly felt better. It happened slowly. Quietly. Through small intentional changes repeated consistently. I started protecting my peace more carefully. Resting without guilt. Creating healthier boundaries. Spending less time around things that drained me emotionally. And for the first time, I stopped treating emotional health like it was optional. Because I realized something powerful. Success means nothing if your mind is constantly suffering. So I began rebuilding myself internally. Not for appearances. Not so people would admire me. But so I could breathe again emotionally. And slowly, I started feeling lighter. Not because life became easier, but because I stopped carrying unnecessary emotional weight everywhere I went. I learned how to pause. How to process emotions instead of suppressing them. How to be honest about what I was feeling instead of pretending constantly. And that honesty created healing. Little by little. Day by day. Until eventually, I no longer recognized the emotionally exhausted version of myself I used to be. Over time, the healing started changing me in ways people couldn't immediately see. I became calmer. More intentional. More emotionally aware. More grounded internally. Not because life became perfect, but because I stopped living in constant emotional survival mode. And that created a different kind of strength. Not loud strength. Not performative confidence. Real stability. The kind built through self-awareness. Through healing. Through learning how to handle pressure without destroying yourself internally. And the beautiful part was this. I no longer needed to pretend. I no longer felt pressure to appear strong every second. Because now, my strength felt real. Not forced. And that changed the way I moved through life completely. I became more present. More patient. More emotionally disciplined. And slowly, peace replaced chaos. Not perfectly, but consistently. And for the first time in years, I finally felt connected to myself again. Looking back now, I understand something I couldn't see while I was suffering. That painful season didn't destroy me. It revealed me. It exposed the emotional pressure I had ignored for years. The unhealthy habits. The emotional suppression. The constant pretending. And while that season hurt deeply, it also changed me permanently. Because now I understand something powerful. Real strength is not pretending you're okay when you're breaking internally. Real strength is facing yourself honestly enough to rebuild. That's what changed my life. Not success. Not validation. Honesty. Healing. Self-awareness. And if you're carrying silent pain right now, please understand this. You do not need to pretend forever. You do not need to carry everything alone. And you are not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You are human. Healing begins the moment honesty begins. The moment you stop performing strength. And start building real peace internally. Because the strongest people in the world are not the ones who never struggle emotionally. They are the ones who face their pain honestly. And still choose to rebuild themselves anyway. Listen. If you've been smiling in public while secretly struggling in private, You are not alone. A lot of people look strong on the outside, while silently fighting battles nobody can see. And the truth is, pretending forever will only exhaust you more. Direct hit. Here's what you need to do. 1. Be honest with yourself. Stop ignoring what you feel internally. You cannot heal what you continue pretending doesn't exist. Real healing begins with honesty. 2. Stop carrying everything alone. Strength is not silence. Strength is knowing when you need rest, boundaries, peace, or support. You were never meant to carry every emotional weight by yourself. 3. Protect your mental and emotional peace. Not every environment deserves your energy. Not every pressure deserves access to your mind. Choose peace intentionally. 4. Rebuild yourself slowly. Healing is not instant. Take it one day at a time. Small changes repeated consistently can completely transform your life. Because one day, you'll look back at this painful season and realize it didn't break you. It rebuilt you. Stop pretending you're okay. Start becoming whole again. If this story spoke to you, subscribe now for more Billionaire Backstories. Because here, we don't just talk about success. We talk about the pain, pressure, healing, and mindset behind becoming stronger. And if you're choosing to heal and rebuild yourself, comment, "I will heal in silence."